So I was born here in Tennessee, but I actually grew up across the state line over in Kentucky. And then when I got out of high school, I moved back over here. So I've been back in Tennessee for about 25 years. And these days, I wake up every day envious of the fact that they have Andy Beshear for their governor, and I'm stuck with the Dollar General wannabe Donald Trump known as Bill Lee. Every day I wake up and say, dang, why do I have to be, I'm 5 minutes from the line. Why can't I have a sensible governor? Why do I have to be stuck with this dude? And every time Andy walks up to a microphone, I'm envious. So I've got a couple of clips here that I want y'all to watch of Andy Beshear. For those of you who aren't familiar with him, I feel like right now Andy Beshear is reading the room about better than anybody. And he's speaking to Democrats like a Democrat should be speaking, and he's speaking to the American people like a Democrat should be speaking. So for those of you who aren't familiar with him, now's the chance to get familiar. These clips are a little bit longer than I normally would play here on the channel, but they're worth every second of it. So let's watch the first one, and then we'll talk more about it.
You're doing something right to be able to win in Kentucky. So what are you doing?
That's kind. I think it's three things. It's focus on the core concerns that Americans wake up with in the morning. It's talking to people like they're real people, not using all the sanitized language that's been out there. And third is sharing your why. So if you start with focusing on people's everyday worries, when most people wake up in the morning, they're not thinking about politics. They're thinking about their job and whether they make enough to support their family. They're thinking about their next doctor's appointment for themselves or their parents or their kids. They're thinking about the roads and bridges they drive every day. They're thinking about the public school they drop their kids off at, and they're thinking about how safe they feel in their community. If you don't feel secure in all of those areas, it's really hard to reach another issue or cause, no matter how much you care about it, because you're worried about your family. So for me, listen, I always stand up for my beliefs. I vetoed a lot of nasty, discriminatory bills. But I'm always out there trying to create that next job, trying to make healthcare more accessible. When we built a road in eastern Kentucky, it cut down the commute for some families by 20 minutes both ways. People underestimate the impact on somebody's lives, 40 more minutes with your family. And so it's making sure that 80% of what I or what the Democratic Party should be talking about should be those core concerns. But how you talk about them is important too. I mean, we've gotten to a point where we use language that doesn't mean anything. We use the term substance use disorder instead of addiction. Well, the folks I know that have gone through addiction, they call it addiction. Or food insecurity, when people are going hungry. It makes us sound like professors as opposed to talking to people as people. And then the words lose their power and their meaning. But the last piece may be the most important. And that's, I think we as leaders need to explain our authentic why we make decisions, why we do these jobs with everything you got to put up with, why we put our families through it. And for me, it's my faith. And so, for instance, when I vetoed the nastiest anti-LGBTQ plus bill during my election year in Kentucky, I explained it, why I did it. And that's that my faith teaches me that all children are children of God. And I wanted those children who are being hated on by their General Assembly to know their governor cares for them and loves them. And my faith tells me that that's my job to do, to stand up for them. And so I'll never forget, I think the next day, a guy walks up to me and I thought, what's coming now? And he said, Andy, I don't know if I agree with you, but I know you are doing what you think is right. And so if we can explain our why, we can create hopefully the grace and the space to have some disagreements that are out there, but people still understand what you're doing each and every day and how you're going to make their life better.
I love how simple he breaks that down. That's what our side needs so bad right now, is somebody that can break it down in a simple fashion that everybody can understand. We don't need someone using big words and sounding like a professor and sounding completely unrelatable. So if you talk about the issues at hand and you focus on those, and then you speak in a language that people can clearly understand, and then you explain why you did it, more people will understand you and get along with you. I know so many people who don't agree with Andy Beshear. Most people I know in Kentucky don't agree with Andy Beshear, but I will catch them saying, I don't always agree with Andy, but I like him. He seems like a good dude. Seems like his heart's in the right place. And they really can't deny that he's been a good governor. Anybody in Kentucky that says to me Andy's not been a good governor, they've just been listening to too much Fox News and they're in denial. Because I think even some of the most hardcores deep down knows what a good job he's doing. And he's just a genuinely good dude. And this next clip really shows that, because he has stood up in blood red Kentucky for the LGBTQ community. And in this interview with Ben Meiselas, what he says here is something everyone needs to hear.
Discrimination against our LGBTQ plus community is unacceptable. It holds us back, and in my Kentucky accent, it ain't right.
Now, if a Democratic governor in Kentucky can do that, what are Democrats afraid about in the rest of it drives me crazy. You're in Kentucky and you're saying, look, I'm not going to let people be bullied. I'm not okay. My faith makes me not okay with marginalized people just getting punched down. Yet it seems that Democrats are living in right-wing frameworks and echo chambers and feeling, you know what, if I want to win an election, I guess I gotta kind of be like that. I guess I gotta kind of, bro out and punch down and bully. And you're saying, I'm in Kentucky. And you know what? The people in Kentucky like people who stand up for what they believe in and fight for them, right?
Well, bullying is always wrong, and standing up for people is always right. Hate's always wrong, and love's always right. Judging people is always wrong, and accepting them is always right. But I think what many Democrats are doing is misreading the last election. They're seeing that last ad that was played and thinking that the last movable voters voted on that anti-trans issue. I don't think that they did. I think what Donald Trump convinced them is that his opponent was distracted by other issues while he was focused on prices and the economy. And so this isn't an either or. As a Democrat, stand up for what you believe in. Stand up for protecting people. But at the same time, the next day, be out there opening that new factory. Be in your community, cutting the ribbon on the new clinic where people are going to be able to see a doctor that are right there. Be out there making sure that public safety is improving for everybody. We've got to show people that you can stand up for your principles while at the same time being there every single day for every working family, regardless of their politics. We have to do both and understand that this is not an either or.
I'm with Ben Meiselas on this one. If Andy Beshear can stand up and say those things at Blood Red Kentucky, then no one else out there anywhere in this country has any excuse whatsoever. And I loved when he said, bullying is always wrong and standing up for people is always right. Hate is always wrong and love is always right. Those are words that needs to resonate, and those are words that needs to go all across this country, because we've been living under this nightmare that is Donald Trump, that is nothing more than punching down and cruelty. And the saddest part to me about this whole thing is how somehow or another the evangelicals in my part of the world and the church-going people in my part of the world, they've latched on to one of the most hateful, despicable dudes ever in Donald Trump. Someone who mocks and punches down at anyone he disagrees with, and yet they'll turn and they'll question someone as genuine and good-hearted as Andy Beshear. But he's read the room, and he understands how to speak to people. And if he can do that in Blood Red Kentucky, what the hell is Gavin Newsom's excuse in California? I mean, you got Gavin Newsom out here platforming the worst of MAGA and giving them a microphone and just sitting there and letting them mop the floor with him. Meanwhile, you've got Andy who's speaking about the issues at hand, explaining them in terms that everyone can understand, and then explaining why he's doing it. And that clicks with people, even if they don't agree with it. I know right now things seem really hopeless. I know right now you're saying, Brando, no one's ever going to listen to anybody but Trump. Trump's the only one they're going to listen to. When these problems start coming back around to bite them right square in their ass, and their grandparents and their parents and their children and their daughters truly do feel the wrath of this presidency, a person like Andy Beshear is going to click with them. A person like Andy Beshear's words are going to ring in their ears, and they'll say to themselves, he might be a Democrat, but he's making some sense right now. And those are the kind of Democrats we need. Not people that's going to go out here and bow down and kiss the ring and kiss ass. But we need people who can talk about the issues at hand, explain it in a way that everyone can understand it, and explain why. To me, it's very simple. And there's so many out there right now trying to figure out how to walk this line and how to, I guess this means now that we got to be this way. No, as a matter of fact, it means now you double down on who you are even harder. because they've doubled down on the hatred. They've doubled down on the racism and bigotry. They've doubled down on the authoritarianism. They want Trump to have a third term. They want him to stick around for life. They want him to be their God. Reasonable people don't want that. And so if reasonable people, once things bites them and they feel the wrath of it, they're going to turn. Reasonable people are going to turn and start listening to Andy Beshear and go, maybe he's got a point. And that's the type of people that we need in the Democratic Party.